Thanks for tuning in to the Replatform podcast sponsored by Ampliance and Klaviyo. You're listening to myself, James Gurd. Today, my co-host Paul Rogers is deep in integration work, or he's pretending to be. So thanks to our regular listeners for tuning back in. We do appreciate it, and a warm welcome if this is your first episode. We hope you like it. Do subscribe to get new episode alerts. We drop one every week, and we would love a like and rating on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple to make us feel nice and warm inside. Thank you. So let me set up today's episode, and then I'll introduce you to our guest. So the topic is Universal Shopping Baskets and Order Management for Omnichannel Retail with Mercaux Fluent Commerce. So the pretext of it is this: is delivering a seamless cross-channel experience is a strategic imperative for omnichannel retailers, but operational complexity makes it hard or often really expensive or too difficult to achieve, usually due to challenges integrating disparate tech. Today, we're focusing on Universal Shopping Basket and OMS, one element of the full omnichannel stack, looking at how it works and why it's needed. So we're going to cover Mercaux and Fluent's market offer and the customer need, what the Universal Basket solution is, how it links into the order management flows, cost models, etc. So let's start with a very warm welcome to Shaun from Mercaux. How are you, Shaun?
Yeah, very good, thank you. My name's Shaun Britton. I'm VP Sales at Mercaux. Been with the organisation for just over a year now. Prior to me joining Mercaux, I have spent probably 15 plus years in the broader technology landscape as it relates to retail. Looking forward to our conversation this morning.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Shaun. Good to speak to you as well. And Jamie from Fluent Commerce, would you like to introduce yourself and Fluent, please?
Yeah, thanks, James. Thanks for having me. My name's Jamie Cairns. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Fluent Commerce. We are a global order management system provider. We are headquartered in Australia, but we've got offices throughout the world. My role and background, I look at the kind of strategic direction of the business. I work very closely with our product team in product market fit and where we can enter into new markets and partnerships that we take very seriously. I ran sales for a while and set up our channel and alliance business. Like Shaun, I've had probably longer than I would care to think about in tech. In e-commerce platforms, search and merchandising, core retail applications like demand planning and forecasting.
Excellent, thanks. So really, really glad to have you on, and thanks for joining us all the way over on the other side of the world in Australia. Our international podcast travels continue. So we got a cracking episode. So I'm going to kind of split out the questions to alternate between the two of you. But let's start, Jamie. Let's start with you. I know there's been a big recent strategic announcement to the market. What brought Mercaux and Fluent together in the first? What was the customer need, and what's the value proposition?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? So, first of all, what is an order management system? And Shaun will tell you a lot about Universal Basket and in-store. But what's an order management system? I think the first kind of myth to debunk is that it's all about orders. It's actually predominantly about inventory and inventory availability. So most of our clients see a large number of potential sources for inventory. They may be in their warehouses, in their stores, and we'll talk a lot about stores today, I would imagine. In their partners, they might drop ship products that aren't held as inventory. They might manufacture products on demand and so forth. So it gets complicated with this wide range of sources of inventory. And then on the other side of the equation, on the customer side, there's a range of different demand sources, websites, stores themselves, kiosks. And as we reimagine the store experience, one of the critical aspects of being able to deliver a fantastic store experience, and I won't talk over Shaun's value proposition there too much, but the visibility of availability of inventory when you're doing endless aisle, when you're crossing channels such as starting online, putting something in a wish list, checking out in store, picking up in store, buying online, picking up in store, returning in store of an online order and so forth. Hopefully I'm kind of painting that picture. That can get quite complicated. So an order management system itself is designed to present availability of inventory and then be able to create fulfillment promises which can be faithfully upheld by retailers. So why did Fluent and Mercaux come together? We're very focused on order and inventory management. There are a range of other applications around order and inventory management, which are very important. Commerce platforms, in-store applications, and so forth. So we stick to our knitting in presenting availability of inventory, and we act as an enabler to folks like Mercaux who create fantastic in-store experiences for staff and customers alike. So the reason we come together is we philosophically believe in a composable approach to commerce. We don't think that trying to do everything kind of okay is the way for enterprise class retailers today. So we're founding members of the Mark Alliance. We really philosophically believe in that composable approach to commerce. So Mercaux and Fluent sit together really nicely. There's no overlap in our capability. It truly is a value add on top of the order management system.
Cool. Yeah, and I'd just add to that. From a Mercaux perspective, I think we provide an in-store digital platform, broadly, and we kind of view that in three kind of discrete layers, if you will. One being customer experience, universal basket that we'll talk about in more detail today, and checkout are those three layers effectively. And in order to be able to, and then let me kind of share what we are absolutely not. And we are absolutely not an order management platform. We're not a CRM or a CDP. We seek to find the single point of truth for all the data required from an in-store execution point of view, from the broader technology stack. And OMS, in our view, is an absolutely critical part of that technology stack to be able to support what we talk about as next generation in-store technology or next generation POS that doesn't silo data in any way, shape, or form. And as Jamie said, that whole available to promise inventory capability that order management provides for us as that single point of truth is critical to delivering the customer experience aspiration that the retail brands are looking to deliver for their customers. And this whole kind of ship to store for collection is a smoke and mirrors, right? And what Fluent supports is that real-time inventory availability for click and collect today in real time, and we provide the in-store UI to allow both the customer to facilitate that themselves, or indeed the sales associate to support the customer to facilitate that. So it's kind of a match made in heaven, really, with very little crossover, as Jamie said, in terms of functional capability.
So let's get a bit more practical about the universal basket then, Shaun, because I know it's a new addition in 2022. So some people will understand the premise, others will be new to it and thinking, well, why do I need it? So what is it, and what are the key features that benefit retailers?
So holistically, the universal basket, universal cart, it's been defined and described as a number of different things over the years. Has always been kind of this utopian place where retailers have wanted to get to, where the seamless customer journey can genuinely be delivered, because that the basket persists, and it persists not only in store, but it persists across channels as well. And what the Mercaux platform has done is found and devised a way to be able, because we are a platform, to be able to support that universal basket within our own technology space within the store. So, the journey could start in the fitting room from a customer experience point of view. They can scan product in the fitting room. They can add that to basket. That basket then is available to any other UI across our platform. So the customer then can exit the fitting room and check out with the sales associate that stood outside the door. More broadly than that, what we've also done with some dependencies, which we'll go on to talk about from a tech stack point of view, one being inventory and order management, but more broadly than that, we can support the persistence of that basket across channels. So all of a sudden now, the ROPO journeys that people have been talking about, for some time, where customers are researching online and purchasing offline, or of course vice versa, researching online and purchasing offline. Those journeys now can actually be genuinely supported from a technology point of view, where technology is the facilitator and the enabler, as Jamie suggested earlier, rather than the barrier to preventing those things that happening, and there being kind of a sticky plasters and glue approach to the back end system need around delivering omnichannel universal baskets. And I think that's the solve that we've created, if you will, and devised is, we own the platform in store, so allowing the basket to persist in store is straightforward for us. Not all vendors are in the same situation as that, but for us that's straightforward because it's a platform with multiple UIs, so it's the same effectively back end. But then more broadly than that, as I say, with a few dependencies, we can support that cross-channel universal basket, which is this utopian place that retailers have been looking to get to for many years, and the industry's talked about it for many years, and our view is we've gone an awful long way to solving that in the new world.
And how in practice does it work alongside Eco? So you got your technology sits in store, but obviously you talk about multiple channels. Somebody will have retail has an existing e-commerce system. People go and access online. So how does it work for the shopper if they create a basket in store, for example, but then they're shopping on the e-commerce store in the evening or the next day? How does that link up with the e-commerce system work?
So the best way to kind of think about the persistence across channels from a universal basket point of view is in the term of wish lists, and essentially providing that the e-commerce platform supports wish lists, then those wish lists can begin in store, be saved in store, and be available online via the customer's account. And similarly, the reverse can occur. And we would view, for example, an abandoned basket as a wish list, essentially speaking. So providing, again, that the e-commerce platform can, convert that abandoned basket into a wish list labeled abandoned basket with a date, then again, we can retrieve that abandoned basket in the store the next time the customer visits, and be far more informed from a sales associate engagement point of view as the customer visits in the store. And for those organizations that have kind of sort of different categories within their stores, perhaps in a fashion environment it might be events or the kind of they might have a wish list for gifts that they're looking to purchase for family for Christmas. They might have their own wish list of things that they want and need. They could have in a department store, it could be a list for the kitchen, a list for the bathroom, all of those things. And we can retrieve those, and when we support an unlimited number of baskets from a saved basket point of view or a wish list point of view, and we can retrieve any of them that are relevant at any point in time across any of our UIs in store. And again, providing that the e-commerce platform supports multiple wish lists, then the customer can do exactly the same themselves online.
Cool. So I guess the key point for people to understand is that this is not overriding an existing basket. It's creating additional lists which can be converted into baskets via the customer. And then, therefore, just for clarity for people, the payment mechanism, it aligns with our existing payment gateways because it's passed through the e-commerce system.
Yeah, absolutely. So from an e-com point of view, if the journey is research offline and purchase online, then that basket is checked out in the same way as any other basket would be checked out through their commerce platform online, with the order then obviously being pushed through into OMS for orchestration and logistics. From a store point of view, there are a number of ways that we can support. So from a Mercaux platform point of view, if you consider the checkout capability that we have, we can support traditional transactions, we can support cash transactions, but equally we can support buy now pay later options, we can support digital wallets, and some of the next generation payment methods that we're seeing beginning to be talked about in this space are definitely something that we support as well more broadly. WeChat Pay, AliChat Pay, all of those kind of things are options to the retailer depending on how they want to configure that in the store. But equally, one of the convergences that we're seeing more broadly outside of perhaps inventory and customer from an online and offline point of view is around checkout and payment. Being able to leverage the online checkout from store, which we can support equally, and some of the online or previously only online payment methods, supporting those in store. So the BNPLs, the Amazon Pays, those types of things we can support in store, if that's what the retailer wants to facilitate for the customer. Our view is we need to make checkout as frictionless as possible, regardless of whether that's online or offline, and remove barrier. And that's exactly the approach that we take. Cool.
And Jamie, we talked about this prior to today about there aren't many platforms that have the end-to-end commerce order management piece. Some do. I know Proximus in France has it, and they've got a universal basket. So what would be really useful for people to hear is the Mercaux and Fluent working together. What type of customer are you focused on, and why?
Yeah, thanks, James. The majority of our customers are reaching a reasonably advanced stage of maturity in not only their digital, but their omnichannel journey. So they're probably not having a go at managing orders from multiple sources and fulfilled from multiple locations for the first time. 5 years ago, a lot of folks were doing it for the first time, but really now where we're engaged is where folks are really looking to optimize. So I think the new generation of order management approaches is about optimizing fulfillment, optimizing the use of inventory, as opposed to doing basic plumbing, which it quite often was in the past, or more deeply into the supply chain. So the types of customers that we're looking at typically are at the enterprise scale or the upper mid-market scale. They use a combination of best-in-class components, because it's not about just optimizing their omni-channel. It's about optimizing each individual aspect of it. They've probably plateaued on how much can be extracted from an all-in-one platform. A lot of our customers will have chosen one at some point during their development. So yes, there absolutely are great platforms out there that are all in one for a certain type of customer. And we've made a deliberate decision to really focus on developing a software as a service platform for the more enterprise scale, but also the more sophisticated. So we typically work alongside commerce platforms such as, I'll try and do them in alphabetical order, so I show no preference. Adobe Commerce, BigCommerce, Commerce Tools, Salesforce, SAP Commerce Cloud. So they would take up probably 95% of our clients were using one of those platforms. Obviously, within the Mark Alliance, BigCommerce and Commerce Tools are most prevalent. We're a premier partner with Adobe, and likewise with SAP. So the more enterprise, those who have a sophisticated architecture, typically those that have reached the limits of an all-in-one platform. And I'm really challenged by the future, actually. I mean, it's a bit controversial because there's a lot of different approaches to life. But I think those that are jack of all trades are really going to get caught in the middle, where Shopify at the all-in-one end has a fantastic offering, notwithstanding its battles with Amazon and so forth. And then the composable approach at the other end of the scale. I'm yet to see how that kind of middle ground shakes out for the likes of Proximus and Kibo and others, right? And VTEX. They've got a bunch of good opportunities. I'm not quite sure if I see where it's going at this point, though, James.
Well, the future, if any of us could accurately predict exactly where the technology landscape's going, we'd have cash in on the startups. Yeah, it's interesting. I think the composable, the approach of best in class of individual technologies takes a mindset shift and a cultural shift in a business, and not all businesses want. Some businesses are still very traditional and they like a single supplier, single negotiation, but it has different pros and cons. So yeah, I'm with you. Some clients I work with, the modular approach is exactly what they want. They want best in class, and they want to be able to plug and play, so that if a relationship isn't right in 2-3 years, the impact of retiring that system is not so heavily felt operationally.
Yeah, I think that's right, and it's incumbent on software vendors, systems integrators, consultancies to do the right thing by our customers. We're not trying to shove a composable approach down an organization that's not mature enough to be able to accommodate it. And that doesn't have to be an elitist kind of a view, because it doesn't mean you have to have 1,000 developers. But I think your point's right. It's a mindset, or it's an approach that's really important. So we've got to make sure that we're not just from a sales point of view, qualifying opportunities, but actually making sure that we can be good partners to our customers, that we really truly are delivering what they want, as opposed to just trying to sell them something.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I also think, coming back to some of the comments you made earlier, Shaun, about the UI, it's how much control do you have, because some of the capabilities in legacy platforms with the logic constraints mean that, for example, the shopping basket in store becomes a very functional basket, but it has limitations on what flows you can have, what payment methods are supported, how those payment methods work, what the experience is for the customer. So a lot of the time, I think where you say exhausting that existing capability is when it comes to compromising customer experience.
Yeah, exactly, and that's our heritage at Mercaux. Frankly, is customer experience. And as you mentioned earlier, the universal basket and checkout from a store point of view are relatively new additions to the fold from that perspective. So we take a slightly different view, and from the points that Jamie was making earlier on as well. I think one of the things that we're seeing is people, even if they're then not quite ready, perhaps from a technology stack point of view, aspirationally the direction of travel is composable because they've experienced vendor lock. And that's something that they want to avoid, because that's costly. Ordinarily, that's costly. So, again, we're seeing, a value that it isn't necessarily a solution value that's derived, but it's actually an architectural value that's derived. And I think that's something that even, over time, certainly in the last 12 months or so, has shifted quite significantly, I think. In terms of that move away from the all-in-one into a more composable approach, and I think the advances of technology allows us to take that composable approach. I remember, and I'm sure Jamie does too, that we've talked about a best-in-class versus end-to-end for decades, right? But the real difference now is that the composable nature of technology and the ability to plug and play has actually allowed for that to be something that derives value rather than attaches cost. And I think that's one of the game changers in terms of kind of the way forward. But yeah, I think from a store point of view, we're delivering against the customer experience aspiration, and we start to do our kind of solution design, if you will, not from an architectural point of view, but from what does the customer experience look like? What is it in the store that you want to deliver for your customers so that they engage with your brand in the way that they want to? So let's take technology out of the equation, because our view is technology should be a facilitator and not a barrier. And historically, those kind of transactional POS solutions that you mentioned, James, they were a barrier to delivering customer service excellence, because they weren't designed to do anything other than take transactions. Whereas I think the world is now a different place, and brands and retailers realize that it's the differentiation between customer experience that will give them competitive advantage, and those are the conversations that we believe are happening at kind of high level within organizations. It isn't I want Mercaux, it isn't I want Fluent Commerce necessarily, but it is I want a genuine, joined up, unified, cross-channel, omnichannel customer experience that meets the expectations that their customers have, and I think that's where the difference lies.
What is Amplience? In a word, it's freedom. The freedom to build a digital experience as limitless as your vision. Create, preview, schedule, and manage all your content in one easy place. Find out more at amplience.com. Amplience. Experience freedom.
So let's talk some of the practicality, because I know that often people are sold the dream of omnichannel and unified experience, but there's always challenges of getting it up and running. So the universal shopping basket indicates like single customer and elements of the single customer view, because we've got identified customer across channels. What technical requirements does a retailer need to satisfy for you to be able to implement this solution in their business?
So the only real dependency that we have is the ability for e-commerce to support at least one, preferably multiple wish lists. Outside of that, yes, we would expect CRM to be in play in terms of one of the back end systems, but by virtue of the nature of the way that we've architected our solution with our own integration layer, we can support kind of a hybrid tech stack approach where some of the data that we require is driven by services and some of the data is driven by feeds that we actually join up. So providing, that they have the ability or a unique ID for the customer. If the customer is siloed in by channel effectively, then that doesn't concern us overly, because we can join those dots together in our own integration layer and present back to the sales associate then the entire customer profile, cross-channel, omni-channel profile. So we're not limited by multiple data sets in that way, providing we can join the data up, of course. And similarly for product, if product information sits in multiple different repositories, that's fine as long as there's a common identifier for from an ID point of view.
And a link question, and this use case comes up. It's an edge one, but it is an important one. In-store sales assistant has a customer. They want to create a basket. They want to create, you push it into wish list, but that customer doesn't exist yet in the commerce database because they've not registered. What process do you have for handling that so that person can then still go and access it when they log in online?
So we create new customer from the Mercaux application and the Mercaux platform. That creates a customer in real time in the CRM or CDP that the retailer has. So when we post the basket, that customer already exists. So it's just a question of making sure that the sequence of service calls that are made and creations that are made are done in the right order.
Cool. The benefit of an integration layer alongside the UI. Jamie, let's switch back to you around some of the order management stuff. So, the front end of the UI bit is obviously important for customer experience, but operationally is normally where things fall down. With stock and inventory management, I think a lot of businesses can relate to this about getting accurate stock files. So how do you technically work with retailers to ensure you have accurate stock data across all the different stock files they're holding?
We just have the Fluent silver bullet to solve accurate stock. I was interested actually by when Shaun was describing before, the advantages that we have being modern cloud-based platforms is that we can take advantage of the developments in technology that the likes of AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, and others have developed. And there is no kind of magic answer to ensuring stock is accurate. What we have to be able to do, and the reason I opened with order management kind of being an inventory management use case to start with, is we'll unify a view of inventory from all of the locations. Now, one of the ways that we've been able to take advantage of some of the advances in cloud computing is that historically, one of the reasons for being out of sync on a view of inventory is that ERPs aren't a very good source. They're typically batch based. They don't make that data available in real time. So we can bypass the ERP. We get data from the point of sale system. So we have created an inventory streaming mechanism that allows us to receive updates as frequently as they happen. So if events happen one by one, something's decremented in a store, we'll see an update. So our job is to keep that view as real time as possible. Now, the worst possible scenario is overselling. I think you've spent a lot of money on acquiring a customer. You've taken them through a great experience. You've got the right product, the right price. You converted them, and then it turns out what you actually thought was there wasn't there. So we do have to be able to have our clients put safeguards in place to prevent that. There's some automation in place. So if we see issues with fulfillment, then we'll automatically exclude that from a particular location. So essentially, what we do. Take a very large data set of updates in real time to be able to unify and then segment views of that inventory across various different systems. So if I'm ordering from a store, it's not in stock there, but I know it's in another store, we can give you a very accurate available promise.
And how about back orders and pre-orders? What capabilities do you have baked in to support those processes?
Yeah, both of those are native to us, so that they're an inventory status essentially within the platform. So I can have even more complex than that. So some of our customers do manufactured on-demand products or assembled products from kits. So I might be buying a bike. It's actually 26 different components or however many components. So I need to know the inventory status of all of those different components within the order. So having an order hierarchy and an inventory status for all the individual components is important. So knowing what I've got coming, we're still reliant on data. So knowing when I have items that are going to come back into stock, if I'm back ordering, so that I'm still able to promise. It's not just a back order and then it will happen on the never. And the same with pre-order. We see a lot of really interesting order management use cases around pre-order limited edition products. One of our clients, Pokemon, probably has the highest spike in demand for a limited edition product that you could imagine. Sneaker releases, for example, high degrees of contention where inventory accuracy is extremely important, certainty around delivery, and customer loyalty in these types of environments tends to be incredibly important. So very passionate buyers needing to be really, really accurate on pre-order. So I would say that not only do we support it, I think it's probably one of the most valuable use cases that we deliver, actually. But it's often an afterthought, but our customers don't think so.
I imagine the volume of demand for a limited edition Pokemon must be off the scale.
Impossible with the old world, right? Is you could not pre-provision enough infrastructure for your on-premise commerce and order management system to be able to cost effectively do that. That's where cloud platforms really come into their own to be able to massively scale to handle peaks like that. And of course, the software on top of it's got to work well.
So, Shaun, are there any limitations to the type of product that the Universal Basket solution supports? Because you've got simple products, configurable, you've got the modular products that Jamie's just talked about, you've got digital products, subscription products, you've got mixed baskets with back orders and in stock. So is there anything that can't be supported from a product type point of view?
So the short answer is no, and this is one of the questions that I love to answer with eloquence, because the answer is simply there is no limitation. So providing that there's no limitation from the Mercaux perspective, and I'll kind of take us back to a comment I made earlier on in terms of single point of truth in the tech stack from a retail point of view. So providing order management supports those complex products that you mentioned earlier in terms of subscription products, digital products, maybe items that the store wants to manage, items that aren't for sale, so bags and other inventory, that type of thing. So from our perspective, it providing that order management understands and knows how that product works, we surface back to either the sales associate or the customer, depending on the UI, the options that are available from a delivery promise point of view, and indeed from an inventory available to promise perspective in terms of location. So if they want to pick up today, where can they pick up today? If they want it shipped to home, what's the delivery promise? What's the soonest they can get it? And again, we leverage order management for that. And from a complex or mixed basket perspective, we can support, again, that kind of dream position, if you will, that many retailers are wanting to get to, where over the counter transactions, along with an endless aisle transaction, along with a collection from another location transaction, along with a click and collect that I ordered this morning from that store location. And by the way, I've got 2 returns that I want to process. Can we do that and support that in a single transaction to the customer? Absolutely. Why? Because it's the right thing to do from a customer experience perspective. We don't want 4 transactions just because it's 4 different systems of execution that are creating those orders into OMS or whatever. And this is the beauty of having a single platform that supports the technology needs from an in-store point of view, is that you can the customer can create, we can hand off, the sales associate can create, we can hand off, but essentially speaking, the customer, the visit is as complex as is needed to be.
Yeah. So I've got a question for both of you, which is around typical integration timelines and costs. So Shaun, let's start with you. let's start on the front office stuff, the universal basket, and then we'll go and look at the order management. And I appreciate when we get to you, Jamie, order management does depend on operational complexity, but
yes.
let's start with the starting point. Like what? Let's look at a simple project. Simple projects that you've implemented. What's the kind of baseline in terms of integration timelines for you, Shaun, of getting a universal basket solution up and running for in-store teams?
So we would, and again, it is a bit of how long is a piece of string, but without understanding the notion and detail from a complexity point of view. But generally speaking, we would talk about kind of a 6 to 16 week kind of timeline. So that would be common. The anything going beyond that is probably because there's development required on the customer side from an endpoint point of view, from an integration endpoint perspective. But yeah, we could certainly deliver. We've delivered a project in as little as 2 weeks, from kickoff to go live. Fairly basic use cases, I would add from that perspective. And a typical kind of end-to-end POS capability, in-store technology capability, would be in the 12 to 16 week range.
And when you say typical POS, what's that? What are you providing in that typical POS solution for the customer?
So those 3 layers that I mentioned earlier on, it's customer experience, and that can be defined in any number of different ways, depending on the nature of the service that the retailer delivers themselves. Clienteling is something within our portfolio for sure, but clienteling isn't right for every retailer. Similarly, self-serve checkout is not going to be right for every retailer because of the nature of the way they wish to engage with their customers. So we build that customer experience up, and you could kind of view it as Lego, if you will, digital Lego, kind of pieces, put the pieces together to meet the customer experience expectation. We then deliver basket and checkout from a POS point of view. So that supports multiple payment methods, gift cards, refunds, exchanges, returns. We support cash management, of course. So that's our kind of definition of point of sale, if you will. I'm not overly, I don't know what your view is, Jamie, but I'm not overly comfortable with the term point of sale anymore. I challenge myself if that's the right terminology for what we do. I think we've kind of followed convention to an extent. I think as vendors like ourselves gain more traction, I think we will probably end up having it relabeled as a different category than POS.
On point of experience, we start it today.
POE, yeah, maybe that's the right. We'll assign that to you in terms of in terms of sort of. It
would have to be POX because everyone loves to change experience to X, don't they? For some.
Yeah. I'm not sure POX is going to be overly friendly.
We'll bring you the POX to your store. Yes. Brilliant. I've given you free branding rights on that.
Yeah, there we go. POX. I'm not sure that I'll get that through marketing, but we'll see what happens.
That's why I'm not in marketing, Shaun. Right. And Jamie, from your point of view, I know I totally appreciate, because if you've got like a global store with a global brand with hundreds of stores, different technologies in different locations, it's going to be massively complex. If you took us, what is your approach? I guess the better question is, how, from an order management point of view, what is the approach and process for integration with a retailer?
Yeah, similar to, you're right, there's a huge range, and I'll still try to give you and your listeners a bit of a view of how we approach it and what to expect, right? So there are no plug-in OMS projects. So let's be very clear about that. There's requirements gathering, there's a good amount of testing. Heart surgery's come a long way, but heart surgery is still heart surgery, right? It's incredibly valuable to its recipient, but it's not to be taken lightly. So the way that we approach it is looking at what their current limitations are, what use cases from a customer experience point of view are looking to be delivered, and how can we take the minimum viable approach to delivering against those so that we get value delivered very quickly, and then we can iterate on top of that. One of the benefits, the other benefits, I guess, of modern cloud software is we were born in the cloud. We've been API first forever. Integration simplicity, I suppose, has been in our DNA from the start. We were early adopters, for the more technical listeners, of GraphQL, which greatly improves developer efficiency and integration. We have software development kits that allow our partners to build nice, simple, reusable integrations into the platform. So we try and reduce all of the non-value adding work in a project. We try to simplify that as much as possible, and we think that's a responsibility of our product and engineering team, rather than it being out there and repeated regularly. So that's kind of philosophically how we've approached it. Within the platform, we're talking about making inventory visible. I'm sorry, Shaun, but I'm kind of abstracted from and less concerned with what the order taking interface is, actually. And what that allows me to do is standardize the workflows within the order management platform. And by standardize, that doesn't necessarily mean restrict, but to keep them as consistent as possible across the various different order taking channels, because with consistency comes efficiency. So if I can have a fulfill from store workflow that doesn't matter whether that order was placed on the commerce platform, placed on a kiosk in store, on a Mercaux enabled device that's being handled by a staff member, and so on, I can reuse those workflows. So I try to keep it as standardized within order management as possible. However, there are multiple fulfillment workflows. So it's typical that our customers will have multiple on the outbound, and then same on the inbound if they're handling returns in store. So the long and the short of it is, we have customers that have gone live with an omnichannel experience in 3 months from start to finish, and then we have others that are 12 months. It's unusual to be at 12 months, but as you described earlier, if I've got thousands of stores across multiple continents and multiple websites, then it does get complicated. But yeah, on average, our clients are launching in 3 to 4 months.
Okay, cool. I appreciate it. And it's always used to give people an idea of, because I think sometimes people get overexcited about integration seems simple because the requirements don't seem that onerous, but actually you're right, it's the flows, mapping out the flows, and the operational process is always a bit that takes time.
And we've tried to take the approach. Order management isn't something we invented, right? There's been some players in the market for a long time, IBM Sterling, Manhattan Associates, and so forth. And if we came and did it the same way they did it, I don't believe there's a market for us. So we've done it differently. We come with a lot more out of the box capability, so a lot more standard flows based on a ton of experience with a lot of clients, so that you get started a lot further down the path than starting from scratch, essentially. So we'll try and minimize it as much as we can. But to your point, James, it's complex businesses introduce complexity into the software, unfortunately.
Yes, indeed. That's all the key question and asked today. So I really appreciate it, Shaun, Jamie, for joining us. Thank you for taking the time to share, what this universal basket solution is, and what the relationship between Mercaux and Fluent is. On the website, for those listening, we'll have links out to both the sites. But Jamie and Shaun, if anyone has got a question about, they want to get in a bit more technical detail, or they want to probe you on what you mean by some of the things you've been explaining today, who do they, or how do they reach out?
From my point of view, they're welcome to come through the Mercaux.com, but equally, I'm very visible on LinkedIn. Shaun Britton, Britton. I'm sure if they're connected with you, they'll find me. So that's as easy way as any other. Yeah, and same for you, Jamie, or different?
Absolutely. LinkedIn's where it's at. So fluentcommerce.com or LinkedIn. Fluent Commerce LinkedIn page also has a link to a ton of really interesting content, explainer videos, case studies, partner announcements. There's a lot to see and learn from there. But feel free to reach out directly. I'm always up for a new connection.
Cool. And thanks everyone for listening. Hope it's been a useful episode. Do keep an ear out for the next one. It lands every Tuesday. We'd love you to subscribe, and we'd also love a rating on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Until next week, everybody.
For more information on this topic, head over to replatform.fm for our audio podcasts. To discuss a project, or if you'd like to chat about any of the topics covered in this episode in more detail, please reach out to myself, James Gurd, or my co-host Paul Rogers via LinkedIn and Twitter. Thanks again for listening, and keep your ears peeled for the next episode.